better. Even when it's, you know, someone who is something you think you would never, you know, an approach you think you would never use, or it sound like it resonates with you. There's always little bits of gold. You know, sometimes for me, just a metaphor that I hadn't thought of before, you know, or a way of thinking of the work, even a process I've been using for years, can kind of give me a whole new way of thinking about stuff. And, you know, I kind of live for that. You know, I love little toys for my mind to go on a walk and mull over it, to play with my, you know, with my clients and just try this or try that. And these days, my training is really one of the things that I keep stressing, and it's only because I've been doing this for over 20 years. And I'm a bit of a training junkie. So I'm always going to workshops or bringing them to me, as I just said. And one of my pet peeves is when a trainer will say, you know, forget everything you know, this is the way to do therapy, or this is the way to do change work. And I started to get so angry about that. You know, it's like, forget everything we know because you have the one way, you have the only way, you know? And I've built a training that is really inclusive in that I don't use scripts or anything like that, but I teach a kind of how the brain changes, right? So here's what we know about instigating neuroplasticity or therapeutic memory reconsolidation. Here are the basic 4 steps. And if you really examine all the different theoretical and practical models out there, you'll realize that underneath them all is a similar structure. So whatever kind of window dressing you put on that for novelty and, you know, curiosity and excitement, you know, the artistry of the change work, as long as you're hitting these component parts, the brain is going to change. You know, you're going to build new neural pathways. You're going to, you know, spur this on. And so once you kind of get that underlying structure, then everyone's favorite techniques have a place in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So these days, my work, more than ever, I think, in my years of doing this, I've been able to synthesize it down a little bit more, you know, to what I've been calling these, oh, hi, Leanne. I'm seeing a couple of different faces that I recognize from my webinars. You know, to these levels that I've been kind of going over. So I'll share that with you guys, and maybe it'll give you some things to think about, or, you know, some ways of looking at your own work that maybe I hadn't before. And I think of my work now categorized in kind of 3 different levels. And Leanne and Faye, I know you've heard me harp on this recently, so repetition is good. And the first layer of my work is really about empowering the clients to change their own brain, right? So it falls under this self-directed neuroplasticity frame. And that includes like arming clients with all the techniques that you might give them for self-hypnosis, for pattern interrupts, whether it's tapping or bilateral stimulation or peripheral vision or any different way to kind of interrupt the habituated patterned response and reroute the brain. And the research indicates that it doesn't take very long for the brain to be trained into different neural connections, you know? So that's like the first layer, and that's where all of those other techniques and many more can kind of be utilized, right? So I arm my client so they can change their own brain. And the next layer is really about working together to kind of neutralize different external triggers. This level is a little more about artistry, and it's where a lot of the techniques and the processes that you probably use and teach would fit in. But really, it's a more dynamic form of change work. It's very interactive, you know, and it's really about looking for these very specific triggers, reconditioning in new responses, and then kind of setting the brain to generalize, right? So those are the two main levels. And then the third level is about meaning making and understanding and clarity and basically the why of the problem. You know, the client can change their brain and achieve their goal with just the first layer. If all they had was one session and they came to me, I would arm them with not just a bunch of techniques, but with this ultimate goal and really an understanding of rewiring a habituated pattern, whether it's a pattern of doing or feeling or thinking, you know? And if all I gave them was that, they're good. And they could, if they're tenacious, change their own brain. Then I kind of add in the second layer where we'll make it easy now. You don't have to do all the work because I'm going to work with you to get that done, you know? And then the third layer is more deep trance stuff. Yeah. Sprinkling a little magic. So those are kind of that's kind of this new way I have of conceptualizing my work. And I haven't had that conceptual frame for that long. You know, I just find that because I primarily train therapists. And so I need to be able to encapsulate it in a succinct way that they can then turn to their supervisors and get them to pay for my training. You know what I mean? Because this, you know, integrative hypnosis is strategically ambiguous, a brand name. You know what I mean? And coaching the unconscious mind is my other big training. And that is strategically ambiguous so that I can continue to learn, continue to gather new processes and techniques and throw it right into the umbrella. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, I found that it was not as efficient for people explaining the training to their, so that was the main reason.
Hey, babe, look at this.
Synthesizing. What'd you say?
I think someone just unmuted accidentally.
Oh, thought it was a question.
Yeah. People, I'll just quickly say to people, if you do have any questions, you either unmute and ask, or you can chuck them down in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I just came on just to join you in a gathering, and you know, so anything you want to talk about, I'm happy to, you know, to play.
Yeah.
I had no agenda. I wasn't even given a topic. It was just like, hey, we have this thing. Why don't you come on?
Yeah. I was going to say we're very casual here, and I try to keep it very casual. I know with other meetups, it's you know, they have you need to bring a prepared PowerPoint and stuff, but I've never in my life done a prepared PowerPoint, and I've been teaching at conferences for 20 years. Yeah. They're always like, do you need any props? I'm like, no, I've got hands. Yeah. We are very, we're very casual, cool, relaxed people.
That's good. That's good. That's the way I like it.
Yeah. We, I loved a video that you put out recently. A friend shared it to me, and I ended up passing it on for people to look through, which is just that your very basic way of explaining even hypnosis with your hands.
Oh.
It was.
I have no idea what video that is, but
it might have been an older video, but it was just you. It could have been even a part of a talk that you did, but it was really neat, and I passed it on to the students to show them.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, I will send that. People are asking me if I can send it to them.
I'm sure there's better videos. It's so funny when you don't know, like people will post things and I'm like, oh, I don't remember that. When was I there? You know, like when was I at that place? You know, and it's just, it shows up. But I've got some interesting videos. If you like, there's one I put on maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. If you go to YouTube, punch in my name and punch in neuroplasticity, it kind of gives you a bunch of different techniques, the techniques that I give to clients. I mean, it's a bit older, but it's got a good explanation for how to, you know, kind of tell your client how to retrain their brain. You know, using kind of gestures. This is your habit road, and we're going to put a roadblock, and it'll force your brain to detour. It's good bullet metaphors and different techniques. I've been sharing a lot of techniques lately because people are freaking out in this world, you know. I mean, you guys, you're really one of the lucky ones. You've got like an adult running the show. So I couldn't imagine what it's like to have like a grown-up. But anyway, don't get me started. We're not going to go there.
Yeah.
We're not going to. So I've been using, you know, the techniques, and I will share with you, if you don't know, I mean, you could just raise your hand if you do, and then I won't bother sharing it. But do you use or teach your clients peripheral vision as a pattern interrupt? Yeah? Okay, most of you?
I think there's quite a good group that doesn't, from what I can see.
All right, so well, this will take a minute, but I will tell you it saves me.
Yeah.
But also there is something to be said. You know, there was an interesting research study, not really a research study, but a study where they were using different screen sizes to see what effect it had on your kind of emotional state and your ability to access confidence and more positive states. And what they found was that, and they used Apple products, right? Because they could measure the iPhone, the iPad, and then a desktop. And what they found was people who are always looking at their phone, I mean, think about physiology as being hooked to you know, it's a whole biophysiological system. So when you're hunched and you're hunched over looking and you're in this kind of foveal vision, that foveal vision is attached to stress, constriction. Hunched shoulders is the posture of more negative emotional states, depression. All of this is the physiology. And so it's a little better with an iPad, but it's much better with a big screen, right? But so many of our kids now are on a screen, and it's very rarely a big screen. It's typically a laptop or an iPad that they're like glued to now, or their phone. And so what happens is we are kind of training our brains to be in foveal vision, which, as we know, is associated with the, you know, sympathetic arousal instead of in that nice kind of parasympathetic state. So one of the things that I've been teaching a lot of people, healthcare workers, and I've been doing a lot of like volunteer stuff for teachers and social workers that have to deal with students, is to just this quick technique, which is one I give to almost all of my clients because it saves me all the time. And that is shifting into peripheral vision. Now I give it as a pattern interrupt. In other words, anytime you're starting to feel that old anxiety or anger or whatever, just begin to do this thing. So let me just show it to you if you don't know it. So looking straight ahead, take a moment and find a focal point. I guess for some of you, it will be me. As you find that focal point, without moving your eyes, begin to become more aware of the edges of the screen that you're looking at. Kind of expand your awareness beyond the screen and into your peripheral vision. So kind of allowing yourself to become more aware of the walls on either side of you, expanding into your peripheral field even more, as if you could expand into the space behind you. And then bring it back into focus. Now we're going to do that again because I can see many of you and you weren't doing it with me. So now I'm going to ask you to. All right? So without I know you might want to write it down or something, but don't do that just yet. First, feel the effects of it. For me, I go first. No matter what technique I want to share, no matter what I want to do, I typically vet it personally. And then I vet it through, my big group of students before it ever makes the cut into my work with my clients. So feel what this one does, all right? Once again with me now. So finding a focal point, without moving your eyes, begin to expand into your peripheral vision. So simply kind of relaxing into the walls on either side of you, as if you could even visually reach beyond the walls. Almost as if you could reach for that space behind you. And then bring it back into focus. So just first, what was that like? Does anybody want to share what that was like? Just unmute yourself. Someone said quiet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew.
It's very similar to a technique we use in Tai Chi for trying to see the opponent behind us. So getting people to relax their perspective, so they get an all-round awareness of everyone around them.
Excellent. And how did your body feel?
What then, or when we do it in the Tai Chi?
Well, either way. I mean, Tai Chi is a little different because it's a nice little balance of parasympathetic, sympathetic. This one, the reason I teach it is because it naturally dips you into that parasympathetic response.
Yeah.
But more importantly, you shut up inside your head.
That's right. This one was it felt more of a expanding the mindset.
Yeah.
Rather than the environment. So it was an internal expansion rather than external. Interesting.
Yeah, cool. For me, it's really about the stopping of internal dialogue. And what you'll see with your clients is the shoulders will relax, they'll breathe from a different space, muscle tonus in the face will relax as they just kind of shift into this state. So I always joke these days that it's my new mantra, which is shift out and shut up. That's just shift out and shut up. Because I can spin it. Nowadays it's much easier to fall into that kind of rumination, and you can't keep anxiety going without internal dialogue. You just can't. So it's a good one, and it's a good one to do for yourself and to share with your clients. It's easy to translate virtually.
You definitely feel the shift pretty much instantly as you start to go out.
Yeah.
You feel everything just slow down.
And with practice, you get better at it. This Carlos Castaneda used to call this stopping the world. And it was just a way of shifting out of that internal rumination state and into a more expansive awareness. You know, foveal vision does the opposite, right? So we'll be in this nice peripheral, and then if there's a threat, our vision and everything goes, right? So this is just kind of training us, especially in the age where we're all on screens. It's important, you know?
It's quite to explain to, like you said, to teachers, isn't it? Because being in a digital class,
Yeah.
kids are down on the
Absolutely, yeah.
looking
So
down.
I think it's a really good one for now, you know? There's just simple techniques to give people, and that's one of probably about 4 or 5 that I typically will share with most clients on the first session. You know?
Melissa, can I just say, I'm sorry my picture's not coming up. I have some issues with Zoom, but anyway. Out of, I guess, desperation at the beginning of COVID-19 and shutdown, I wanted to learn some new techniques that I could utilize myself to help sort of minimize some of the stresses and anxieties that I felt really coming up. And so I did some research online and had been doing some stuff through the Mike Mandel site and things like that. And I came across what you have on that site, and it was so incredibly powerful, and I enjoyed learning it. In fact, I just purchased your book today, the Toolbox book.
The Anti-Anxiety Toolkit.
The Anxiety Toolkit, that's the one, which has, of course, the peripheral vision along with several other techniques. I think it was only 19 New Zealand dollars on Kindle. So it's a really good price, and it's I couldn't recommend it more highly to anyone to have a read of that book.
Well, here's what's funny, and I maybe it's not so funny to you now, but I was going to send it because I'm talking about it. It's an easy one, but I'll send a PDF, and then she can share it with you guys. And
oh, so I just bought it, and you're going to send a PDF. Thanks.
Well, I said it's funny, but maybe not funny to you, but email me, I'll send you something else.
Okay, that would be wonderful. But listen, I can't recommend that more highly, and I've actually shared.
But I'm going to say this, Karen, this is what it really looks like. Yes. It's this tiny little book that I give to every client in the first session. And the thing about it is it was never meant to be a book, because it was just a way of giving them all these techniques. So because of that, it's very short. And we made it into almost like a poetry book, right? Because I work with people with anxiety disorders. So each process is like that. And I think, unfortunately, the Kindle and also the PDF, you don't get that. It's just like you look at this and you're like, what? It's 30 fucking pages. How is that a book? But when you see it formatted properly and you realize it's supposed to be this little book you can stick in your back pocket, and it's got my self-hypnosis template, but it's got a bunch of the techniques that I share. And it really does look like, it's laid out like a poetry book. So that being said, I'm showing this to all of you because I'll send you a PDF, and I'm not even sure if it's the last version of the PDF, like if it's not even edited properly. So no fucking judging. Got it? No judging. And I'll send you that.
Thank you so much.
Whatever format, it's a little gold nugget. I can tell you that, and I couldn't vouch.
All right, Karen, I'm glad. I'll be sending you I have a PDF version of my latest book, which is, do you work with kids and teens?
I think that's exactly what Karen is wanting to work with. She's wanting to work with teens.
All right, well, there you go. I'll send you that one, that PDF, that Kindle one.
Can I give you my email on the chat?
Well, why don't you just email me? Okay. And this way, here, I can just put that on the chat, and this way I won't forget.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure, of course.
So, Melissa, you do as your call a monthly, you do like a monthly kind of supervision type call?
Well, I do. My supervision practice night is has been every other Wednesday for years for all of my certification students. It was a way of, you know, a lot of people fly in and take my training, and they don't get the benefit of the in-person practice nights. And I've been doing that for, gosh, since I started doing certification training. So that was probably, I want to say 17 years ago. I'm always teaching the class I wish I had had when I started. And even now, 20 years in, every class I teach, in the back of my mind is, what do I wish I had known?
Yeah.
So I never do like, here's level 1 and, you know, and then come back for level, like this good stuff that I like now, you know, like it's all, here's what I'm doing today. Here, let me backtrack and give you a foundation of stuff. Here's what helped me along the way, but here's where I'm at. And one of the things that I really wish I had had when I first started learning was a place to land, a place to keep practicing and honing my skill set. So I've provided that for, you know, a long time. And I think what you're talking about is, since we've got lockdown, I did a kind of the fundamentals of coaching the unconscious mind, where I kind of really hit hard the meta pattern of change. And I did that for April, Tuesday nights. And then I just started one for May, which I think Faye and Leanne are on. And it's Tuesday evenings, and that's, you know, for people that kind of have an awareness of my work already and kind of know the meta pattern.
And so are people allowed to jump on that one, still join up on that one now, or is it too late to join up on the May one?
So you missed the first class of that one. And I'll say, you know, I can send you the first class if you join up. Well, maybe I'll spend the time giving you a kind of heads up on the meta pattern. And it, you know, if you want to join, you can. Once you know that that's what we'll be hitting. Yep. That could be something cool for me to share right now, and then you'll decide if you want. It's, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of nods. Okay. Yeah. And then of course I've got 2 people who are like, yeah, we already went over this.
Repetition is good. Go for it. Hit us harder. It's good.
Because this one is a bit of a deeper dive. Like but I'll send you the first class on that, where we really go into more of the nonverbal, how to kind of regulate your own vagus nerve so that you're aware of the potential space in between. But why not? Let me go over the meta pattern. If there's one thing that I can say has changed the way that I work the most, it would be understanding this pattern. And the cool thing about understanding this, and I'm speaking to you, Leanne and Faye, is that the more you hear it, the more you embody it. I first learned this pattern from my friend John Overdurf. I don't know, was it like 13 years ago, 14 years ago, maybe? And I first heard it when I was listening to one of his training programs that I had bought an audio version of. And at first he kind of went over the 4 steps of this pattern. And I was like, really? That's underneath everything? But all of these elaborate things that I was using at the time. So I spent a few days paying attention to all of the processes and the techniques that I use and track these 4 steps underneath. So I was like, holy shit, whether it was any NLP pattern or EFT or regression to cause or timeline therapy, it all really did follow these 4 steps. And then when John explained his conversational coaching model that followed these 4 steps, to me, it was like a revelation. I was getting the same results in a conversational approach that I was getting with like a regression to cause or a timeline or re-imprinting. And it freed me up to really change the way that I thought about change. All of a sudden, I didn't have to do this or this or this. There's a pattern underneath everything. And once you get that, it just becomes more of a free form rather than a rigid structural thing that you've got to hit. It allows you to be a little more present to the client, the individual in front of you, and not necessarily technique or process. So anyway, so here's the 4 steps. And what I can do, as I said, is I can send not just the first recording of this, but also I sent a bunch of demos that talk about the meta pattern and then show all the different ways of using it, a PDF of demos that I've collected over the years that might be interesting as well. If you sign up for that, I'll make sure to get that to you. And you don't have to read it right away, but it'll reinforce this pattern. So step 1 of the meta pattern is associate into the problem state. And I'm going to go deeper into these 4 steps, but since I see many of you writing, I'll just keep going. Step 2 is dissociate from the problem. Step 3 is associate into the resources, the good stuff, how they want to feel instead. And step 4 is bring the resource to the trigger, what we call the collapse. Now, some of you, I guess, Karen, you mentioned Mike Mandel. I had gone over there to do my addictions protocol. And, you know, and Mike and Chris were students in this. And they have now taken this meta pattern and they teach it with, God, what do they call it? ADAC. Because, you know, Mike Mandel, he's got to give these acronyms. So associate into the problem state is really about lighting up the relevant neural network that you want to change. But the way that I do this is very specific. If a client is talking about their problem and they start crying about their problem, don't believe that you have activated the neural network. They're crying about it, which means they haven't fully associated in a strategic way. So step 1 is where all the work is, trust me. Most people, when they first hear it, myself included, you think, oh, that's easy. Clients associate into their crap all the time. But you need to do this in a very specific way, okay? Now, if you look at these 4 steps and take any one of the techniques, like how many of you use EFT? Or like the tapping, you know, motion, no, not, yeah, some. So you'll notice these 4 steps, or any NLP pattern, or the backward spin, you know, it's like you first associate in, then you dissociate, then you spin it backwards and laugh, and that means you're associating into the resource, and then as you're laughing and it's spinning backwards, then you relook at the trigger. Or for re-imprinting, right? They associate into something, you dissociate. You say, what resources do you want to send to that younger you? You send them the resources, float in and experience the thing again. That's the collapse. So these 4 steps, you might find it interesting to look at all of your favorite processes. You'll see these steps underneath it. Regression to cause. You were talking about the Simpson protocol. You know, it's in there because that dissociation and then that ultimate resource state, from the ultimate resource state, looking down at the problem causes the collapse. Anyway, so let's talk about the way to do this conversationally. So step 1 is about getting very specific to light up the relevant neural network. And the way that I usually describe this is I pull the metaphor from Gary Craig with EFT. It's a great metaphor. He says, you can think of the problem, let's say anxiety, as a tabletop. And then there's a bunch of different legs that support it. And all these different legs are incidents. They're specific moments where this anxiety or this anger or this stress or this procrastination or whatever the heck problem you're working through, there's typically many legs. So with the meta pattern, if you really want to spur on a good generative neural change, you want to get specific bite-sized pieces. So if a client comes to you and says, I don't know, I have anxiety. First thing I say is, well, you know, when was the last time specifically? Now, most clients, and I think I say this in the thing I'll be sending you, but I'll hit it again just in case you have other things to do and can't join that group. Let me give you what is really a crucial bit that if I do my job well here right now, you'll be able to use this pattern in an hour with someone, right? So when they say I have anxiety and I say, well, when was the last time specifically? A typical client's going to be like, well, it always happens, right? Because they're going to resist that, you know, just give me one specific moment, because it tends to feel like you're minimizing their issue. But what I explain everything. I work in a very co-creative space with my clients. So I explain what I'm doing to them so they can help. I say, I get it. I know it happens all the time, but we're going to get to one specific so we can light up the neural network in the brain, introduce change, then we'll go for another. And if we change 2, 3 of these things, your brain will generalize. And I say that to my clients so they're on board with me. And it also gives me a moment to stop their story so that I can say, okay, when was the last time specifically? I need you to be there, because basically what you're looking for step 1, you are looking for what is it that they see or hear right before they feel the anxiety. You're looking for the moment that this program gets turned on. That makes sense? So I'm going to say, okay, when was the last time specifically? Where are you and what's happening now? Okay? Where are you? What's happening now? The client will say, I don't know. I'll just give you any scenario. Well, I was fine. And then all of a sudden, I see that, I get a phone call and I see it's my mother-in-law, whatever, sorry. My mother-in-law was lovely, seriously. But this was a client I had. I see that, I hear the phone, I'm fine. I look down, I see it's my mother-in-law, and you'll see a tension there. In that moment, you've got step 1. So what you could do then, well, you can do anything. You can say, where is it in your body? And tap on it. You can say, is it spinning? And reverse it. You can say any technique. Where is it in your body? What shape is it? Or you can do no technique and just say, got it, now shake. And what I do with my clients is I shift my body. I say, sit up. Okay, the hard work was done. Now that causes a bit of a dissociation. And the next question causes even more of a dissociation. The next question is, how do you want to feel instead? This question is so embodied to me that I think it immediately for myself. How do I want to feel instead? Now this question is interesting because it typically causes a transderivational search inside your clients, where they go inside looking for how they'd rather feel. While they're going inside looking for how they want to feel, for a positive emotion, one that would feel better, they are no longer looking at the way they had been feeling. So this causes a dissociation that we need. If they say, I want to feel confident, she always intimidates me, then the first thing I'm going to say, so now we've gotten step 1. We know if you think of step 1, or rather this whole pattern as a copy and a paste. You're going to copy how they want to feel, and you're going to paste it to where they need it. Right? Most change can be boiled down to this, right? So if you think of it as that, then for step one, you're always searching for where am I going to paste the resource? And if you can't answer that question for yourself, then you haven't gotten step one clearly delineated. So if it's a copy and a paste, you need to know where you're going to paste the resources. So we already have that. We have, oh, it's my mother-in-law. I see the name on the phone. Then we dissociate. How do you want to feel instead? When they come up with how they want to feel, like confidence, don't think that you're in step three. Don't think they're in it. You've got to get them in it. And that is how you get anyone into an emotional state. I say, what's it like when you're feeling confident? How do you know you're feeling confident? Where in your body is confidence? And you wait until, in order to answer that question, they have to go inside and get it, right? They'll say, well, I guess my shoulders go back, and then I start mirroring it. All right, so your shoulders go back. How else do you know you're feeling confident? Remember, you're a hypnotist. So you're always embedding commands, right? So how do you know you're feeling confident? What's it like when you're feeling confident? Where in your body do you feel confident, right? Everything up till now still counts. So when they feel that, you're saying, now, you know, and they say, okay, I'm feeling, but you know, I feel expansive when I'm confident. I feel like I can do anything. Then you say, use a linkage word. Because now we're in step three, which is associate into the resources. Now we've got step three, we're going to go for step four. As you're feeling this confidence and you're feeling really, you know, good and empowered, now see that your mother-in-law is calling. And how do you feel now? Now that question is great because it presupposes change, right? How do you feel now? Most clients will be like, I feel a little better, because we're taking a positive and a negative, and the two are going to go initially. So you're going to say, that's right. When you imagine that you're changing and you feel this confidence and you know that pretty soon you're going to be able to, you know, kind of stay confident no matter who you're talking to. I'm just riffing on what I might say to a client to get more confidence. As you're starting to feel that confidence, again, see your mother-in-law's name. How do you feel now? Now, this is what I call looping. You're going to keep looping this thing until they can honestly hold the physiology of confidence and that it's the mother-in-law. So you're going to neutralize the trigger. You're going to say, what is it going to be like when the next, you know, and imagine it's a month from now, and every interaction with your mother-in-law, you felt confident and your whole dynamic is shifting. Most people, when you hit their future goal, they're going to be like, oh, that would be so good. You're going to say, and as it's so good, now see your mother-in-law is calling. So I'm going to go into the future to get resources, into the past to get resources. Then I'm going to probably add to it, you know, how else do you want to be? In general, well, I just want to feel like unstoppable. How does it feel when you're unstoppable? And when you're feeling unstoppable, now see your mother-in-law calling. Got it? So that is a basic snapshot of this meta pattern. And there's a million ways to do it. Step one is the most vital piece. And it's typically the piece that we as hypnotherapists miss. Because we didn't know enough to be strategic about it. So quite often, people will come into your office, they'll say, oh, I want to feel more confidence. And you won't immediately go for where in their life they're not necessarily feeling confident and activate it. What you'll do is you'll take them at their word. You know what I mean? So then you'll go into trance and you'll suggest these things, or you'll take them to a process, but because you never lit up the relevant neural network, that change doesn't necessarily get hooked into the moments where they need it. So often they'll float out of your office. They'll be feeling great because we love trance, and trance feels great, especially when you're saying you're going to be confident, you're going to feel this, you're going to do this, you're going to feel that. But then in the they'll go into the real world and the old trigger will manifest, and too often they'll snap back into a less than resourceful state. So by really doing the job to get step one clearly delineated, you'll be able to hook the change to where you need it. Make sense? I've been talking. Does anyone have, okay, you do have questions. Once we've lit up the networks, how long do they remain lit up? What a great question, Tony. But this leads me into a bigger discussion on memory reconsolidation. And the research is indicating it gets lit up before memories get reconsolidated back into the brain. It typically takes about 5 hours. 5 to 6 hours is the traditional therapeutic reconsolidation window. Now, since you're writing, I'm gonna tell you that there's a lot of fun things you can learn just by Googling, and definitely one you wanna get really comfortable with is therapeutic memory reconsolidation. You're gonna find a bunch of good articles, typically by, what's his name, Becker, and a couple of books on it, but just the article's enough, will give you an idea. This is a recording so you can watch again and make notes. Really? Okay. I should have brushed my hair.
No, I was just saying. For people that don't take notes, yeah, you don't. It is recorded, so if you just want to watch this time and not miss it, and then
got it.
Time, yeah.
Okay. And another thing you might want to write down that plays a big part into my work is priming. Polyvagal theory, I talk a lot about. Embodied cognition. These are fun rabbit holes. You know, you just like fall in for the next few months. It's fun stuff. And it has everything to do with what we do. So the meta pattern, once again, the 4 steps. If you really look at your processes, you'll see these 4 steps are in it. If you want to learn to do this more dynamically, which is what we just spent the April webinar on, and the May one, what I just started was getting a bit more, getting a bit deeper in. How do we use our tone of voice, our facial expressions, their gestures to make this a little more congruent? What is it? Can you please tell us what those were again? The 4 steps of the meta pattern, or some of what I said, the rabbit holes? The 4 steps of the meta pattern. Yeah? Jenny? I can't hear you, so yeah. So the 4 steps.
Myself. You know, you talk about primeval, poly, whatever, those things.
Okay.
3 or 4 things you mentioned to look up on Google, and I have no idea what you're talking about. So.
All right. It's so funny because you said primeval, and I'm like, primeval? Wow.
Priming.
Let me up here.
Priming.
Right.
I just
so you got
writing. Yeah.
So Google priming. Google polyvagal theory by Stephen Porges, which is really going to change how you sit with a client and the things that you start to pay attention to. His idea of neuroception, which is going on every moment, which is basically the perception of your nervous system and your client. You know, I teach a whole class on, you know, this vagus nerve. If hypno thoughts happens, which who knows, I have a course I'm teaching called, you know, what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas. Basically, what happens in Vegas goes to every part of your body. So polyvagal theory, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love Stephen Porges. I just watched an interview with him today. Someone posted on my group. I have if you're on Facebook, I've got the Center for Integrative Hypnosis. You can like that page and I have a students for the Center for Integrative Hypnosis, and somebody just posted an interesting thing with Stephen Porges. The other thing I mentioned is embodied cognition. And that is so much fun. And one of the books I'll recommend, well, I can rattle off God knows how many books on it, but if you start with John Barg's book called Before You Know It, I think it's what it's called, but he did a lot of those early priming studies. And I always joke about that because I teach a class called Coaching the Unconscious Mind. And I always have, when people come into my center, I always have a big variety of tea and even coffee and espresso. And then I joke because I wait till everyone gets a warm thing of liquid. And then I talk about how because you're holding a warm cup of liquid, you'll rate me as being a warmer individual. Like you'll like me better. And that's because we embody these metaphors, but it leads me to this other riff on how it's the early sensory experience, right? Right from even, before we're born, that influences our neural networks today. And that's why we have a very early correlation, connection to, warmth and nurturing and goodness, right? When you're warm, when you're born, that means you're being, nurtured or fed or, and when you're cold, you're not. So warm and cold are so deeply embodied in our neurology and our body that we say things today like, I'm warming up to this individual, or they're so warm-hearted, or what a cold bitch, giving me the cold shoulder, don't leave me out in the cold, like these are so embodied. And I love this example because it's simple, because we can understand how the early sensory experience then goes on to create more and more neural connections, and that's how neural networks get formed. So when we make changes to any part of the neural network, it trickles back down. That's the beautiful thing about doing change work these days, is we're having an understanding that there's a neural network involved in every problem. And whether that contains the beliefs about yourself and the world, the early, what some of you would call the initial sensitizing events and the subsequent sensitizing events, if you're of that camp, or, core beliefs or behavior or cognition and the thoughts, distorted thinking. So whatever camp you're in, all of those elements are part of one neural network. And the beautiful thing we're learning about therapeutic memory reconsolidation and change in general is that regardless of where you interject change, you're affecting the whole neural network. So it means that whatever traditional therapeutic camp you're in, you're right. That makes sense. I recently did a keynote where I was like facing all these different camps, oh no, you must regress to cause. Oh no, you must get the core beliefs. Oh no, you must, challenge the cognitive distortions. Oh no, you must get the body and the somatic experience. And I was able to say, hey, everybody, it's the same fucking elephant. Like we're all describing a piece of the whole. And so we can all get along now because we're all doing the same work. And it's all valuable because it still changes the whole, right? Some faster than others, definitely. But anyway, I like at this point in my life to bring these camps together, I have swam in all these different circles before realizing it was all the same damn pool, Anyway, so the meta pattern, if we change one pixel, it changes the entire big picture. Right. And another way of thinking about that I often use is fractals, right? Each instance, each leg of that table each specific moment can be thought of as a fractal, a reoccurring pattern of the whole. Anyway, look up fractals. There's some trippy visuals for you. Is there a way to find if panic attacks is anxiety or possibly mini seizures? Or is it the same? Okay, well, that's a big question. And we don't have too much time left. And of course, I couldn't possibly know the answer. I can give you my best thoughts on it. In my classroom, there's a standard answer, which is whenever somebody asks a question, I always go, well, first answer, and the whole class would be like, I don't know. I'm like, that's right, I don't know. But the second answer is my sometimes educated guess, sometimes not so educated, right? But when it comes to panic attacks, a lot of times it is definitely anxiety, and it is definitely the end result of that. When I say this is your path, your habit path, this is like, oh, worry, rumination, oh shit, what's happening, oh shit, and then it leads to panic. As far as the seizures go, I don't know that. It would really, that would take an fMRI machine, a diagnostic clinician, to say that either these are non-epileptic seizures, because you're right, who asked that question, Kimberly? Because quite often there's similarities in the two, right?
Yeah.
When people describe some of their mini seizures, it sounds like this other person describing what they experienced in a panic attack. So I get where that question is coming from. I don't know the answer, but I like the question.
Yeah, it's something I want to.
You know, I love questions far more than answers, you know, because questions allow me to think and research and go everywhere, you know.
Yeah, because I worry that quite often GPs will put people on anti-seizure medication and psychotic medication when they're going to them for anxiety and panic attacks, and it worries me that that could actually cause a chemical imbalance that may not have been there before.
And general practitioners are doing that?
Yeah, general practitioners here. I've got proof of it, yeah, with my clients.
Yeah, don't get me started. You just open up a whole nother can of worms with me. Fucking, some of the meds that people are put on as a first thing. It should be the last thing, right? But we're not going there, are we? Could you not just ask the subconscious of the person? Julie, that too is a loaded question. And I'll give you my opinion on that. You can't always trust the subconscious mind of any individual. I'm sorry, I know that that's a bomb to some people. I know too much about unconscious filtering systems, biases, heuristics, to trust the unconscious, which will sacrifice. It will sacrifice detail for big picture. It will sacrifice being right for being safe. It will categorize things very rapidly because it is an evolutionary necessity that we get out of instability and uncertainty. So quite often, your subconscious mind is, I mean, all the time actually, it's biased, right? It's biased. It's biased culturally, through priming, it's biased through your neuroassociations, through your upbringing. So all of these things are not separate from the unconscious mind. So, would I trust it? No. Anyway, that's, you know.
Based on perception, isn't it?
What'd you say?
I said it's based on their perception, their reality at the time. So if you...
Yeah, in the same way that your unconscious mind can confabulate like that. Even the most subtle lead can lead into a false memory. So these are things, you know, you can't, this idea of your unconscious as this all-knowing, always correct, it doesn't match up with the research on the adaptive unconscious. It's a magnificent multi-million processing, you know, system. But what that means is it's fast. It's much faster than the conscious mind. But it's also fallible. And it gets things wrong all the time. Anyway, so thinking of a client I'm seeing, I'm just trying to read over your chats real quick because I know it's probably almost time's up. So, you know, Vicki, you got one of the areas where, you know, the meta pattern is not necessarily the first thing I would use, simply because that conversational meta pattern typically is a conscious moment. So if they're waking up at night, you know, I don't necessarily, you know, I would have to know a lot more information. If they're waking up to use the bathroom, if they're waking up, you know, for various reasons. So, you know, you could do in that if they say, I wake up and I can't get back to sleep because I wake up and my mind starts and I start worrying, then maybe you could look for a kind of external trigger, like, you know, the bed, you know, like when you get back from the bathroom to go into bed, how do you want to feel, and condition that in. But it wouldn't necessarily be the first thing I would do. That every client lies primarily to themselves. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that, you know, we just really are not very good at understanding our own biases, because we will swear that we are not. But of course, how could we know our unconscious biases until they're tested? So anyway, so any other questions? I know our kind of time is up. Yeah?
One question, for people that do want to sign up and join in and get the last month's and then jump in on this one, are you going to send me the link for that to share, or do you want to put it into the
I can send it to you. I'm not even sure if I have the blurb. Oh yeah, I have it somewhere on Facebook. I posted the blurb. You know, once it starts, I kind of take it off. I can send you that. And if people sign up, I will get the notification. What I will ask you to do is email me after you've used the PayPal button, so that I have the email address you want me to send the link to. Okay, that's the thing. Unfortunately, a lot of people signed up for PayPal a while ago, and so they no longer check that email. So if you sign up, then you can just email me and say, hey, I just registered, and then I'll send you the link, and as well as the recording. What I might do is send you not just the first recording of this series, but I'm going to go back to the first recording of the April series and send that too, just so you have a little bit more of the first class, and then the first class of the new series. Anyway, no, not at an extra charge or anything. I just want you to feel like you're starting knowing.
That's awesome. Thank you. The other thing is this today's recorded, but it's put on a portal that's closed, so it's not available to the public, but people will probably jump on later and watch it that couldn't make it now. So there'll probably be.
But it's just your people. Yeah. Okay.
But it's just our members. Yeah. Hypnosis New Zealand members. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It doesn't get shot out to the entire universe to watch.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, because when I said it was recorded, your face went,
oh, well, then I'm just like, well, you know, sometimes, you know, you say it's casual, so I don't care if I'm cursing or whatever. I mean, not that I care typically anyway, but, you know, I've moved into my new home office because my daughter's back from university, and took what was my office and is now her bedroom.
Yeah.
I'm in New York City, so it's an apartment. Anyway, so yeah, that's the backdrop. I would have maybe straightened up that area a little bit.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. So, any other questions before I go eat dinner? And you're in my future. I gotta say, I'm like a kid when it comes to this. Still, there's a part of my brain that can't wrap itself around the fact that you guys are in Saturday.
Yeah, and look, it's a nice day, if you can see. So tomorrow you're going to have a wonderful day.
And if you know the lottery numbers,
yeah,
I'll take those too. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for hanging out.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was awesome, and so much.
I'll be sending the anti-anxiety toolkit, a PDF of it. As I said, no judging. You can hallucinate that it's this cute little charming book, okay?
Thanks,
And
Melissa.
Karen, email me. I'll send you the kids book. All right, bye guys.
Thanks, Melissa.
Be well and go wash your hands, which is my new sign off. Go wash your hands.
So see you later.
She's amazing.
I have to say we were very lucky, weren't we? That was a lot of.
Yes.
That was, she said
Yeah.
she had so much information with us.
Oh man, it's just, with her, it's never ending. It's just like a feast of information and correlating and pieces of the jigsaw puzzle just slotting in all over the place. And it's amazing stuff. Thank you.
I like that approach of teaching what she wishes she'd been taught in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to her psychedelic one in Vegas in August. That was the highlight pretty much of my year. So that's kind of not happening. And supposed to be in Portugal today at a conference. Oh, Rotorua. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
And we'll see you. The next one is probably Justine Lette. Justine Lette, and the end of, I think it's the 23rd of May. But if you throw me names, honestly, you won't believe everyone's prepared to talk to us. They just love Kiwis. I just say to people, hey, we're a bunch of Kiwis. It's casual chat. There's no pressure. Do you want to join us? And yeah, so if you've got names of people, because I don't know, of course, everybody, but just send me names and I'll approach them and go from there. But everyone's generous. They love coming and chatting to us.
Good.
Yeah. Have a good day.
And you?
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.